What they were talking about. The fact that you got the crowd, remember at District Council?
You don't want to shake hands?
He won't be over here for sure now.
Good morning. This is Mike Tozen, about the Manistee County Commission. December 20, 2016.
Who got 17?
There's some plugs out there for the sheriff's department. One of them was on reinforcing the their main was the
Maybe John probably.
just get down on our side.
Be
Sounds like
breaking it nice.
Well, what they do is, they take the money they put in for the some of them applied for it, but the label got 17,000. That's what Jim was saying.
Now down in Texas there.
I just thought it would cost a big old notice to
Still 1 minute too. Yeah, call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Father in heaven, on the eve of celebrating the birth of your Son, our Savior, we're grateful for many things. None as great as sending your Son to save us from ourselves. We're grateful for the talented and dedicated staff of Manistee County. We are grateful for a Board of Commissioners that works together in the best interests of the citizens of Manistee County. We're also grateful once again for a balanced budget in the year just ending. As we celebrate the birth of your Son, our Savior, we ask that you watch over and keep safe the citizens of Manistee County in the new year. All this we ask in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Clerk would be good enough to call the roll.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Here.
Commissioner Dunn?
Here.
Commissioner Goodman? Here. Commissioner Hilliard?
Here.
Commissioner Marshall?
Here.
Commissioner Schmidt? Here. Commissioner Schaefer?
Here.
Thank you.
Take us up to, need a motion to approve of the meeting agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Motion and support, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. And we need a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Support? I'll support. Motion and support. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Here.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman? Yes. Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. This is just
Okay. Up to public comment. Anybody wish to address the board this morning? Going once, going twice. All right. That's going to take us up to recognition and announcements, correspondence. Tom, do you have any correspondence you want to share?
Nothing that you haven't already had in your board packet. I don't have any other things to mention this morning. I know Russ is going to mention some end of the year stuff that I think you'll be happy with.
All right. Well, we do have a number of employees to recognize. Anniversaries, we've got a 10-year awards for Frederick Gannon, Nikki Glass, Ulysses Howard, Lynn Jensen, Judy Wilkosh, and Rachel Whitliff, all with 10 years. At 15-year mark, we have Chris Benicki, Helen Grabowski, Janice Jankowski, Miranda Nelson, Michael Securis, Carol Shively, and Scott Cooper, all with 15 years. At the 20-year mark, we've got James Espovic and Blake Fitch. And at 30 years, we have Mr. Tom Kaminsky. Yay.
It's a big guy.
I made it.
Don't catch the check.
And we also have a couple of commissioners that this is their last meeting as board members. We have one that's going off into retirement and one that's going into the drain commissioner office. So I guess if now would be the time, let's present these two plaques. Alan.
Oh.
Thank you for your years of service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, I can get rid of that.
We're gonna have another wall.
And with that, I guess, Russ, you're up.
First, I'd like to say thanks to Commissioner Marshall and Commissioner Hilliard for their years of service, and it's been a pleasure to work with you while you've been here, and good luck to you. I know Mr. Hilliard's jumping out of the pan and into the fire. Alan, he's taking the easy route. Well, I've been, most of my work for the last month or so has been working on preparing for the audit and closing out the end of the year. Things are looking very well. In the general fund, it looks like we will finish with a surplus, and it will be in the neighborhood of around $200,000. That does not include the transfer that we had budgeted from the budget stabilization fund of $172,000. Also, we need to make some year-end transfers. Mr. Kaminsky generally does the figures the department contingency transfers. We need to make those. After those are made, I assume, from my projections, it looks like we will still finish with on a $200,000 surplus for the year.
So when Russ says that, he means really, because we don't have to transfer the money to the budget stabilization fund, it's actually like $371,000.
Right.
I think you said 72. Did you say 71?
171,000.
I think that's phenomenal. I really want to attribute a good part of that to the employees. Our staff, a lot of the savings is in the budgets of our staff. And the fact that, it's our responsibility as a board to watch the funds in the budget. And I think this board does a very good job of doing that. But you know what? I don't think we could do it anywhere near this well if we didn't have a great staff that's working with us on this.
Well, particularly this year too, because this year, from what the little bit I've looked at it with Russ over the last couple of days, we actually were under our revenue projections just a little bit, which means that most of the savings, am I right on that?
Well, actually, if we would have transferred the $171,000, we would have been over in our revenue by about $100,000. But there are a couple of reasons for that, and the biggest reason being is that our reimbursement for our personal property tax from the state of Michigan came in at $92,000 more than what we had expected and budgeted. They sent us this big check, and we all looked at it and went, what is this for? This is way too much money. And so we thought, well, this must be for, we must have to send part of it to 911, to the library, to the Council on Aging, all of those things. But even that still didn't add up, and it was too much money. And so we contacted the state of Michigan and asked them, I know Mr. Albers from the Equalization Office contacted them, asked them. My office sent them an email as well, and we didn't hear back from them, and then about a week and a half later, we got an email from them saying, no, that money is all to reimburse the county's 5.5 mils. You will be getting the money for 911 and the library sometime in February or March of 2017. So it was $92,000 more than what we had anticipated receiving. And then we also had about an additional $32,000 in general property tax, more than what we had budgeted for. So that's a big part of where the overage in the revenue comes from. And we were about $270,000 underspent on our expenses. And again, as Mr. Bergstrom said, that's attributable to our staff and our department heads for
Really?
watching their budgets and doing a very good job.
It's really noticeable in some of the bigger budgets because it's a larger number. Not that everyone isn't contributing, but when you look at our jail budget, I mean, some of the things that our new jail administrator and our administration at the sheriff's department is doing shows up. It's showing up a lot. Now, maybe some of that is because the jail population is down also, but you know, they're doing a lot of innovative things out there, and it's starting to really show. So, from an expense side,
And again, the staff is showing
And the-
initiative.
that's where the staff-
Ways to generate
Right.
revenues or to cut costs.
and it's, if you look across the board, almost everyone is, and we'll give you a better report in January, and when you get your audit report, you'll get a better report. What we're gonna need, though, when Russ is done, is a motion to allow Russ and I to do year-end budget amendments and to make the department contingency transfers, and then we'll give you a better report exactly what your year-end fund balance is at the end of the year, and then we'll come with a recommendation as to where to put that fund balance, whether to just leave it, the fund balance, or whether we do something different, and Russ even might even mention that
I have a
today.
recommendation for that, and I'll tell you what that is right now. With that large of a surplus, you know, we have some unexpected, unbudgeted things that we need to take care of in this next year. And one of those is the kettle hole assessment, and the other is the McGinnis drain assessment. Now, the McGinnis drain is a 10-year assessment, but it would be my recommendation to pay the entire $181,000 plus with this money, because that will save the county over $25,000 in interest over the next 10 years.
We have until February, I think, to pay that.
Right, exactly.
And then, by that time, hopefully, we'll know,
We'll know
new drain
exactly.
commissioner, what the actual total bill is, if that is its in its totality.
Yeah, we don't have.
We
to
haven't even
make that
received a
today.
bill from the drain commission office yet. And I suspect that we won't until the new drain commissioner is in place.
Plus, didn't we want some clarification on that, Bill? Wasn't there some percentages that were kind of a little bit,
I think Russ can address that, he addressed that with the Ways and Means
all right?
Committee. Some of the
Talking about
complaints,
the kettle hole or the
assessment.
McGinnis?
McGinnis.
Yes.
The incorrect addresses and
Right.
switched and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems with that.
Yeah, but
Second change.
after speaking with the drain commissioner and with the equalization director, you know, basically the assessment is what it is, you know. I mean, the totals are right, it may be on the wrong parcels, but the totals are right, and to go back and try and change that now is just too much, you know. So as long as the totals are correct, we'll just have to deal with it as it is.
For the problem you just talked about, is that happening with the residents also?
That's
Or-
what-
In other words, their totals different and stuff, or do you know?
Well, their totals are correct, it's just that, a couple of examples is that there are some residents that have two parcels of property, one with their house on it and one is vacant. And they put the larger assessment on the vacant piece of property and the smaller assessment on the property with their house. The total two together is correct, it's the correct number. It's just that they're on the wrong parcels of property. But, you know, we're just gonna have to deal with it the way it is. It's just too much to try and fix it.
And our percentage was
25%. Yeah.
Just to address the board a little bit, when I take office here, my first job is going to be call the attorney, call the engineering, and get a detailed billing estimate up until the end of the year here, so I know exactly what is owed them through McGinnis.
That was my question, because we have
That's
been,
my plan.
we have been blindsided numerous times
Exactly.
with expenses that Oh,
I can't do anything till the first of the year, but I'm gonna call both of them up, get a detailed bill, so myself and this board knows exactly what's owed to those two components, or those two.
are you gonna thank them for their services?
Oh, yes.
What about Kettle? How much do you owe on
The
that?
same thing.
It's a little over $10,000.
We do.
I thought that was at what percent?
25%.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong,
I
but
thought we already paid that one.
I think the initial
They
assessment,
just did another assessment that went out on the tax bills in December for the kettle hole
for maintenance, right?
to pay for the existing attorney bills that were hanging out there, to pay for some engineering fees because they paid the engineer to do the assessment, and then for a maintenance fund and some contingency.
So I thought that was 20,000. You're saying it's 100?
No, it's 40.
The kettle.
Oh, 10,000. Okay.
40,000 for kettle hole.
Right.
It's just a gift that keeps giving.
Take
One
it.
hand out the other.
Tom, have we had this kind of a surplus in the past 10 years? Anywhere near, I mean, this is a
Yeah,
combination.
actually, years ago, we used to have $400,000 and $500,000 surpluses, and they were slowly starting to go down, but now they've been pretty stable at between $100,000 and $200,000 in the last few years. Which, you know, sometimes we look at that and we say, man, we're terrible at budgeting. But if you really look at where we save money, it's usually in areas, we always have some areas where an employee resigns or retires, and there's a span of time before we hire someone else, or like a new program starts in the jail where they save some money, or in some other department, or elected officials' office, we save some money from one, and like sometimes when some unexpected revenue comes in, and we've been lucky in that regard, that we always seem to do okay. We've never, I can't remember the last time we ever had to use any fund balance.
Good decisions bring a lot of money.
So, well, this board has worked well with, has worked well with everyone, and I think that policy that you set in your budget resolution every year, where you give back some of the operational expenses back to departments and elected officials, really works. Because otherwise, everyone, back in the early days, in September, the stack of bills went from this big to this big because everybody spent what was remaining in their budget, because they were either going to spend it or lose it. That doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't happen. And people have been able to, departments and elected officials have been able to buy needed equipment from their contingency surplus a lot. You see them almost every month at Ways and Means, and we have a process where they actually have to get some approval to do that. And it's really worked. We have $366,000 in the Department Contingency Surplus Fund. That's a substantial amount of money. So it's there for rainy days or for special occasions or special projects that departments need. So it's really worked well.
Innovative approach.
Anything else, Russ?
That's all I have. I would just, if you guys could make a motion to allow Mr. Kaminsky and myself to do the year-end budget amendments and the transfers to the department contingency, and then we will report back to you at the January meeting with some very firm numbers.
I'll make it.
We have a motion to support. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Thank you, Russ. All right, that takes us up to Ways and Means.
Okay, 14, 9 a.m., Manistee County Courthouse. Members present, Mark Bergstrom, Ken Hilliard, and Richard. Members present, Manistee County Administrative Controller, Mr. Segala, Human Resources Management System Administrator, Rachel Nelson, Finance Assistant, $100 for Aviation Director, Russell Palmer, Wright Treasurer, Ken Falk, Lieutenant Ken Falk. Emergency Management Coordinator, and Jim Master Clerk. First item, moved by Mr. Schmidt, second by Mr. Hilliard, to recommend a transfer of $400 for the Emergency Management Coordinator Contingency Fund number 216-000-390-14, purpose of purchasing some new equipment for the races at Barry's Tower at the Emergency Operations Center. All members of the committee were in support. Again, this was a small amount of money to do some improvements to the antenna, basically.
Is there a motion and a support for that?
I'll make them.
Second.
Motion support. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got one. This extra millage, if you will, the 2/10.
Allocation.
The allocation that we give to the emergency management to 911. Why isn't that money being used here?
This is totally different. We're not asking for, 911 isn't asking for the money. This is the Emergency Management Coordinator, Ken Falk.
Okay.
This is a part of our general fund budget.
Okay. All right.
This is totally different. It's not usually central dispatch. It's receives radio, which is totally different program.
Any other questions?
Well, wait a minute. Say that again?
It's a different program. It's operated out of the Emergency Operations Center, not out of the 911 Center.
Yeah.
And so it's maintained by the RACES people to make sure that their radios are up to speed if an emergency happens and the 911 system goes down. So this is our last means of communication.
So but I thought 911 was supplying all the radios and stuff.
Not for this.
That's the hand operators.
These are ham operators, not emergency services, police, fire,
These are volunteers that are ready to act if an emergency occurs.
Okay.
If we have a flood or a spill or a tornado or whatever.
Well, the biggest thing for these is if the 800 system goes down and these are our last backup. Okay, you can deploy these individuals wherever you need to employ them, so you can have the communications to still get the help where it's needed.
So organizationally, we would say that this department runs parallel to 911?
I would say
No.
conjunction to.
You're talking, the communications that they're involved with is on-site communications for chain of command and control. It has nothing to do with 911.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm trying to think
911 goes out.
organizationally where they're at. They're kind of out by themselves, but they're parallel. They, if 911 goes down, I heard, they step in.
No.
They would step in the effect if there's emergency throughout the whole county.
Okay.
Okay, not necessarily just because, like say 911 actually went down last night for a
Right.
couple hours. Yeah, that wasn't a countywide emergency at that point, so they weren't called into it.
Okay.
A good example is when we had the storm here a couple years ago. That could have been an area where they would have been called into service if we'd have lost communications with sheriff and police. And the ham operators would have picked up that role.
And there were still radio communications last night, so.
We never had and I don't know a lot about this, but I know that there was a revenue sharing grant given to this group, to emergency management a few years ago, to put up a big antenna at the sheriff's department so that this kind of a program can be there as a backup.
Right.
That's about as far as I know how this all works.
How many antennas been put up out there then lately? Because
So there's one antenna for.
that was part of that 2 or 3 years ago conversation. We need that 2/10 so we can fund putting that antenna up.
No, not that.
That antenna's up.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. It's totally different thing.
There's one been put up in Arcadia, I believe, at the fire station. There's another one going up to replace the antenna at the road commission. There's 2 antenna projects right there that .2 mils is being used for.
Those are 911 projects.
Right.
Yeah.
This is totally different.
And the amount is under 500 anyway.
Yeah. The only reason this is brought to you is because in order to get money out of contingency surplus, we have a process that makes it just a little bit more difficult than just coming to my office or just saying I need money out of my contingency surplus. We want you to make that approval. And yes, it is a very small amount.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next action item at the Ways and Means Committee was the finance report. Ms. Rachel Nelson, Finance Assistant, presented the committee with claiming summaries for November 14, 2016 through December 14, 2016, and a summary of the on-demand checks for the review and approval. We do hereby submit our claims from November 14, 2016 through December 14, 2016 for review and approval by the Manistee County Board of Commissioners in the amount of $644,640.18 in bills and on-demand checks, and 2 payrolls in the amount of $472,916.05. Total claimed and allowed December 20, 2016 is $1,117,556.23. With that, I'll move to approve the on-demand checks, bills, and payroll be accepted in the amount of $1,117,556.23, and the same be placed on file.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, is there support?
Mr. Bergstrom, did
He
you
already
say
made
your
the
motion?
I thought it was support.
Support.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the next action item for the Ways and Means Committee was consider payment of unused accumulated vacation, sick, and personal hours. Payment of unused accumulated vacation hours to Rhonda Jones, former employee of the District Court in Benzie County, who resigned from employment with the court effective October 28, 2016. The amount is $2,622.69. Payment of unused vacation hours to Kathy Bro, former employee of the Probation District Court, who resigned from employment with the court effective November 18, 2016, $327.60. Payment of unused accumulated vacation, sick, and personal hours to Antoinette Gorch, former District Court Administrator, who retired from employment with the court effective November 30, 2016, $29,891.69. And how many years of service is that, Tom? Is that more than 30?
About 51.
51.
51 and 4 months.
We knew this one was coming. She falls under a lot of old policies when we had sick time and accumulations of sick time. You won't see those large amounts from newer employees now because we don't have sick time accumulations and stuff.
Will we see anybody serving 50 years again?
No.
Remains to be seen.
Tom's got 20 more.
Yeah, Tom's got 20 more,
Oh,
yeah.
that's true.
No way.
Motion by Mr. Hilliard, second by Mr. Schmidt, to recommend the approval of payment of unused vacation hours to Rhonda Jones on the $2,622.69, which is to be reimbursed by Benzie County. The payment of unused vacation hours to Kathy Bro in the amount of $327.60, and the payment of unused vacation, sick, and personnel hours to Antoinette Tony Gorch in the amount of $29,891.69. Both amounts to be paid from the employee separation fund, and all members of the committee will support.
I'll make that motion.
Good motion, there's support.
Second.
There's support. Any further questions? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
The next action item was a request to approve a 2017 burn grant subcontract from the state of Michigan and Manistee County Sheriff's Office. This is to provide funding for one officer in the narcotics team. It was moved by Mr. Hillier, second by Mr. Schmidt, to recommend approval of the 2017 Bird Grant subcontract between the state of Michigan and Manistee County Sheriff's Office in the amount of $10,142 for the period beginning October 1, 2016 and terminating September 30, 2017. And all members of the committee were in support.
I'll make that.
Motion, is there support?
I'll support.
Okay, discussion. Okay, hearing none, clerk call the roll, please.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Thank you.
Under miscellaneous discussion items, was an issue regarding the Neckerman Marine Fairgrounds insurance claim. In this particular situation, Mr. Brzezinski with Neckerman Marine had on display 2 boats in what was supposed to be a secured, locked building. Unfortunately, someone had vandalized those 2 boats, and Mr. Brzezinski estimated the cost of repair that of $6,613. There was a motion by Bergstrom, second by Hilliard, to recommend to the full board that MMRMA write a letter to request a goodwill payment to be made for the boat damage in the amount of $6,313 out of the county's retention fund. I think Mr. Brzezinski has a point when he says that he paid for secured protection in a locked facility for those boats, and they were damaged on the fairgrounds, and so that's where we're at.
You know, my opinion is we don't know when the damage occurred, if it was during the fair hours or if it was after hours or whatever, so. Well, all 3 entities had insurance. The county says we're not reliable, and the fair board says they're not reliable. So I'm thinking that Neckerman Marine's insurance should cover it.
It's a parking lot incident, basically.
Well,
And we don't know when it happened, that's just it.
A parking lot incident is entirely different. Parking lot incident, you are at risk. Paying for secured, locked coverage is another thing. And I think that Mr. Brzezinski makes a good case about who paid for secured, locked protection of those boats, and it was violated, so.
No, we're not sure if it was violated or not. It could have happened while the buildings were open for the public to view them.
I think that would be difficult because there was staff from Marine at the boats.
Staff's not always there.
Yeah, they're not there the whole time. They have to leave or eat, they have to do other things also. So they're not there for the whole period there, so.
It's my understanding that when they go to the fair board and put something on the fairgrounds, they've already signed some type of paperwork saying they have liability, their own. So that's a clear-cut case of that's their responsibility. It's not mine, it's not my insurance company, it's not the county's.
Well, why would you pay for secured storage or display if you're not going to be covered to some degree other than your own insurance?
Well, if I signed a paper that said I had to have my own liability on it, I would guess that I'm not moving into a secure environment.
I'm not sure if they signed something.
That's what I was.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they signed something. When I turned this into our insurance, I knew they weren't gonna pay for it. But I turned it in, and they sent a letter back basically saying, county doesn't have any liability here as far as they can see. It's up to Neckerman Marine to prove liability, that there was liability. There's no evidence that we did anything wrong. And that's MMRMA's take on it. We're self-funded in a pool arrangement with them. If we were dealing with a private insurer, this would have to come out of your general fund. We have a loss fund on deposit with MMRMA with some money in it. We could send them a letter saying, we want to pay this. My problem with this is that if you do that, you're opening up a can of worms for someone else down the road who might make a complaint and say, I think this should be covered, and we may not feel it should be covered. We have made some exceptions in the past. I can't give you an example because I can't remember exactly the details of those, but there was one or two over the course of my years here where we did pay some smaller amounts. I don't, when I asked the Fair Board, I said, send me the liability. What Mr. Marshall's referring to is a sponsorship invoice that is sent to them.
I'm looking at it right here.
Where they pay, and it says, please provide your liability insurance. When I called the Fair Board and said, you didn't send me what they turned in, they said, oh, we didn't ask them to do that. And so then these things happen, and then we don't have anything showing that. But it does say on the bill, you have to provide your liability insurance. No different than a contractor who comes into this building. If they do a large project, or even our guys that cut our lawns or do snow plowing, we require that they submit us proof of liability insurance, so if something happens, their insurance covers first. We're not responsible.
So as far as debating this at great length, is there a motion and a support for this expenditure?
I'll make the motion to provide a goodwill payment in the amount of $6,313.
Is there support for that motion?
The problem is we pay this, everybody that scratches or dings your door, either out here in the parking lot or someplace else.
Entirely different
like
situation.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
An open parking lot is much different than a security.
That's a public building. Someone could walk through there when the guy's either talking to somebody else.
We're debating, there's a motion
on.
on the floor. Is there support for that motion?
It's not different, it's the same thing.
It's dying on the floor. Okay. Lack of support for the motion. Well,
Okay, moving on to proposed budget amendment to the FY 2016-17 Child Care Fund budget. Connie Kruznak, friend of the court, here before the committee, requests a proposed budget amendment to the FY 2016-17 Child Care Fund budget. Let me accept. Moved by Schmidt, Mr. Schmidt, second by Mr. Hilliard, to recommend a budget amendment to the FY 2016-17 Child Care Fund budget in the amount of $9,060, and all members of the committee supported that. And I guess I'm going to give a little more detail on that. That is basically to pick up the cost of, pick up the cost of one of Cameron Clark, Youth Service Coordinator, health coverage. I believe that's what it was.
is there a motion for this?
I'll make the motion.
Support?
I'll support it.
Okay, any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is really information regarding a service agreement between the City of Manistee, Manistee County Prosecuting Attorney, and Manistee County. In the past, the Manistee County Prosecuting Attorney has provided prosecution assistance to the City of Manistee, and to my knowledge, this is still in negotiation.
Well, we've sent, the last agreement was only for 1 year because Ford Stone knew he was going to be leaving. So that agreement is now up for renewal. We've sent the city manager a proposal for the next 4 years. It could end up being 2 years, it could be 1 year, it could be no years. The city now is in the process of determining whether they want to continue with that agreement, do something different, or whatever. So we're just waiting on the city to decide on that. And that's happened in the past.
And it's really good for the county too.
I mean, the prosecutor gets paid a specific amount of money from the city, and then because the prosecutor's doing that, basically with the county's office staff or his office staff that's paid by the county, and with county equipment, the county gets a portion of that. Years and years ago, it was just the prosecutor received that payment directly I talked to Dennis Swain years ago and said, we're using county facilities, county equipment, county staff in your office to do this. Shouldn't the county receive something for that? And so then the payment was split. So which I don't think the city cares how it's split. It's just a matter of whether they want to continue to
Have the service.
have that service.
Any idea when that'll be resolved?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay, Manistee County's, the next item for discussion is Manistee County's member retention fund balance report. Mr. Kaminsky reviewed the Manistee County members retention fund balance on deposit with Michigan Municipal Management Authority for 3 months ending September 30, 2016. As noticed, the balance as of September 30, 2016 was $456,107.72, close to $500,000. Each quarter, the balance has been increasing. There will also be $50,000 added to this fund in 2017 from the premiums that the county pays. There's one outstanding claim when an out-of-county prosecutor is appointed by the state to represent Manistee County in a case and the prosecutor is being sued. Claims have been down and the premium has decreased about 7%. No action. Okay, the next item discussed was the Courthouse Government Center security camera upgrade. Again, Mr. Kaminsky reported that the Courthouse Government Center is looking to upgrade and add security cameras to the current system. Mr. Shimke, maintenance supervisor, is gathering bids for the project that is estimated at $50,000 to $70,000. A grant from MMRMA is covering roughly half of the cost of $37,000. And news of a revenue sharing grant for $15,000 was just approved. The remaining balance of approximately $10,000 to $15,000 will be paid from the capital improvement fund. Mr. Hilliard wondered if Central Dispatch could monitor these cameras. This will be checked into. Mr. Kaminsky also noticed that panic buttons for buildings will need to be replaced sometime in the near future. Are they getting sticky or what's the?
No, it's just getting close to time. That's really not a part of this project. That was just kind of some additional discussion that took place at the meeting.
Okay, and the good news is we did also have a presentation from our county treasurer, Mr. Pomeroy, about the year-end financial review. And the figures haven't changed from our meeting to this meeting. Very happy to see $371,000 in surplus and transfer to stabilization fund. No action on that. Okay, that concludes the meeting. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the Ways and Means Committee.
Motion and support. One correction on that, on the bottom of this, it shows me on that committee, and I'm not on that committee, Mr. Schmidt is.
I think that happened ever since you replaced somebody once.
We'll try to take care of
You can
Okay.
take credit if you want.
No, I wasn't there.
I'll cross your name off. Get it.
Yeah, I missed that, sorry.
Let me sign
So,
it.
anyway, we have a motion of support for the Ways and Means Committee. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, that's gonna take us to personnel.
Okay, personnel met November 29th, and all members were present. Main items for discussion here or to vote on today are salary for the newly elected prosecuting attorney and chief prosecuting attorney. Jason Haig, chief assistant prosecutor, who was newly elected as county prosecutor and for a 4-year term commencing January 1st, 2017 and expired December 31st, 2020. Here to the committee to discuss and make his salary recommendations for his position as county prosecutor. As they reviewed his law career for the committee, Mr. Haig is a 10-year employee in the Manistee County Prosecutor's Office with 8 years of which has been as the chief assistant prosecutor. Prior to his employment with Manistee County, he was in private practice for about a year, and previous to that, he worked as an assistant prosecutor in Washington County for 5 years, and was with Cochran, Wilson, Silver, and Ashland. His total experience as an attorney is approximately 16 years. The current prosecutor, Mr. Stone, has been here longer and is currently at the max step of $107,935.37. Elected officials compensation level, Mr. Haig feels his attorney experience is that 8 years' experience as chief assistant prosecutor should be enhanced to be for the county. Mr. Hague requests that he be placed in step 8 in the elected officials compensation level at a rate of $104,815.20. This is quite long. I'm going to skip a lot of that and just go over to the motion part. The motion by Mr. Hilliard, seconded by Bergstrom, to recommend that the newly elected prosecutor's salary be placed in step 8 at the amount of $104,815.20, and the newly appointed chief prosecutor's, I'll wait on that. In the amount, okay, the amount, effective January 1st, 2017. The ayes were Hilliard and Bergstrom, nays were Dodds. An alternative recommendation was made. So he's requesting to be put into step 8 at a salary of $104,815.20. And I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and support. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to note in the minutes that I read the other day, it even talked about the elected officials. I mean, they're all over the board. And we have, at times, when these positions aren't necessarily in a step raise, or I want to make sure I say this right. We've singled out positions where we have to pay for them. And I understand that. I don't have a problem with this. I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, he's not been here 30 years. I don't know if that $3,000 difference makes that $3,000. I mean, is that a 10-year difference where he would add up to the 107? I don't think so.
Well, that's the difference between Ford's wage and what Jason's asking for.
But 30,
Mine was
but 30 years and 10 years is different. What I'm saying, I don't have a problem with it.
I would like to also comment that at this rate here, I don't believe he will ever get a step increase. Is that correct, Lisa?
Not for a long
I would
time.
say
Yeah.
he would have to be here probably about 20 years before he'd be eligible for another step increase. So the only increase in wages he's going to get are any percentage that the county board deems fit to give him. So if they give him a 2% raise next year, he'll get 2%. If he gets 0, he's going to be stuck here at this wage for a long time. 3 years down the road, he is not going to get an automatic step increase like everybody else would be 3 years down the road. So he's stuck at this wage unless the county board gives him a percentage.
Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds?
No.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
No.
Yes, 5-2.
Okay, moving on, I'm trying. Mr. Hague then addressed the chief assistant prosecutor's position, which would be vacant in the county prosecutor's office. Mr. Hague would like to appoint the current assistant prosecutor, John Halsworth, as the chief assistant prosecutor. Mr. Halsworth has worked for Manistee County for 4 years with an additional year of civil practice. He has sworn to a commitment to Manistee County, which is usually not found in an assistant. He is a self-starter, attends training to stay updated on the laws, and works well with law enforcement. He has handled numerous jury trials and has done an excellent job. Mr. Hague requests Mr. Halsworth's salary be placed on grade 12, step 6 of the non-union, non-court salary scale at a rate of $66,902.27. And I'll make that motion.
Support? Support for that motion?
Well, I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Dodds?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman? Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Moving on, okay, salary for newly elected sheriff and undersheriff. John O'Hagan, undersheriff, who was newly elected for sheriff, whose 4-year term will start January 1st, 2017 and expires December 31st, 2020. Appeared before the committee to set his pay scale, along with the undersheriff's pay scale. Mr. O'Hagan has worked, Sheriff O'Hagan now, has worked for the county for almost 28 years, and of which 9 years has been as undersheriff. Mr. O'Hagan has shown dedication and is committed to Manistee County. County board knows him and of his job performance. Sheriff Polakowski's current salary is at $69,083.39 of the elected official's compensation level, plus a personal car allowance of $4,560. That he has received for approximately 10 years. Under Sheriff O'Hagan would also like to use his own vehicle for work, personal driving. Mr. Kaminsky also has no problem placing the salary of Manistee Sheriff O'Hagan at a current rate of outgoing sheriffs because of his 27 years of experience. It was moved by Mr. Dodds and seconded by Bergstrom to recommend the newly elected sheriff's salary be placed on step 6 at the amount of $69,083.39 plus a personal car allowance of $4,560 effective January 1st, 2017. And I'll make that motion.
I'll support that.
Motion support, any discussions?
Yeah, paying the newly sheriff the same pay as the outgoing sheriff. The fact that he has that many years, obviously, is welcome. But the bottom line is, an undersheriff and a sheriff are two different positions. There's political aspirations that need to be learned in this job. I'm not so sure the same amount is not recommended by me.
I don't have a step scale in front of me here, but was the Sheriff Polakowski at top 8?
No.
You know, 27, it takes 27 years and someone in one position to make top pay in this county, okay? The sheriff was here 30-some years and he still wasn't at top pay, okay? Now, John's been here 27 years and he should be at top pay. I mean, if he was been the sheriff for 27 years, he'd be at top pay. I mean, with his knowledge and experience and stuff.
But he's not.
That's
But
correct.
this is,
He got an elected official's position.
Again,
my concern is more about what is wrong with our scale process. That our, our prosecuting attorney and our sheriff, I mean, we're going to where our outgoing people, we're bringing people at those levels. That doesn't say well to the persons that are leaving. I agree. It's like, well, the new people get just as much as you did, and they're new. They're only here for a few years compared to what you put in. I agree with that statement. However, I'm looking at it, what's wrong with our process, our scale process? Why wasn't Dale at the top of the scale?
Well, our process has been bad from day one I've been here. And it was gonna be fixed, it never got there. And the elected official, when he ran for office, knew that, and I just don't think it's warranted.
One of the problems.
Whether you have the experience is one thing or another, but this is a political position now, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. And I've already seen, I would like to see what the sheriff does before we warrant more money. Let's go back to campaign promises, transparency, working with the other communities and governments in the county, which haven't been going on. Let's see if he fulfills that before you just start giving him money.
Have we done any studies or comparisons for these positions? our prosecuting attorney, our sheriff.
It's been done at some time.
I
I don't know how recent.
I think we're very, very comparable to towns our size. I don't know that, but we,
No, we are.
yeah. One of the problems with the sheriff's, the prosecutor and the chief assistant, there's a large gap between the two salaries. In the sheriff's office, there's not. The difference, the next motion will be to make the undersheriff's position $62,473. If, I don't have the lieutenants and the sergeants and the deputy salaries, but you can't go much lower. Because if you go much lower, the sheriff's gonna make less than his sergeants and his deputies and his lieutenants. And in order to get people to take even the undersheriff's job, there has to be a little bit of bump in pay. So if you lower the sheriff's salary from 66,000, you're gonna have to probably lower the undersheriff's salary. And then you're getting into, why wouldn't he just stay as emergency management coordinator or whatever? That's part of the problem, is that it's very tight between those positions. And getting people to leave a union position or leave another position to take this more responsibility.
That's been happening forever and will continue on. I've worked supervision, salary positions before too.
But in these positions, again, I'm gonna go back to our market. If we have to bring new people in at what the persons are retiring at, I would say that our market, we've got a problem there. I mean, we obviously have not been as equal as we should have been. We have people in these positions, and our market value for those people, I mean, with 30 years of experience, probably was not as good as it should have been. They should have been up higher. So, are we rectifying this a little bit by bringing people in, at these larger amounts?
Also, at this current level here, I think, I don't believe O'Hagan will ever get a step increase either in his career here, will he, Lisa? I don't have the step sheet here.
Step 6 is 16 to 18 years of experience, so 27. So,
Not in that position, still.
Yeah.
but not as, right. And I think what had happened in the, when they did the Notley study or the Raymond Robson, when they placed people in their positions, they placed them in their positions as far as how long you had been in that position. So when the study was done in 2009, right?
Somewhere around there, 6, I think.
Okay, 6 or 9, Dale had probably that amount of years of experience, and so that's where they put him. And one other thing I just want for everyone to keep in mind is that when a previous elected official leaves their position midterm, the new person who's being appointed or elected to that position starts where the other person left off.
Only to the end of that term.
No.
Well, you can never,
Diminish.
ever lower an elected official's wage.
Okay, so let me rephrase forever. He didn't leave midterm though. This
No,
didn't happen.
no, I'm just putting that out as a,
He could have left a week before.
But he didn't.
It's pointing out the disparities in our process.
We've been talking about Notley here forever, and we sat right on this board and approved his decisions and turned down his decision. So I agree with you, the system is failing, has failed. But
I think we have the parameters, it's just how using what Lisa said, okay, I have 27 years of experience, but what about these extra things that I've done? So there's no accommodation for any other things that I may have done. I think in here we're talking about an undersheriff, or maybe it was the prosecuting attorney, somebody who's a self-starter, has already had some, it was the prosecuting attorney's position, where they've done, high-profile trials. I mean, these are extra things that build on a pay scale. You know, and have that in there.
And he built on that pay scale, if you go back to that scenario, but it's still not the same pay scale that the current one is leaving at.
I personally, I don't have anything against Mr. Haig at all, but I will tell you that if you were gonna have this conversation, I think this conversation should have taken place in the previous motion when you were talking about the prosecutor, more so than the sheriff's position. I feel very strongly and recommend very strongly that you put the undersheriff, Mr. O'Hagan, at the rate that the current sheriff is at. On the prosecutor's side, you did lower it a little bit from what Mr. Stone was making, but you could have had this argument, I think would have been more valid in that discussion.
The argument wasn't valid then, because it was under. It wasn't an argument.
Well, I mean, you could have gone further with it. I'm not saying that that was my recommendation, because the committee did adopt what our recommendations were. So I'm not arguing against that.
I'm not gonna make an argument for something I felt was right in the first place.
Okay. I'm just saying that I firmly believe that Under Sheriff O'Hagan should receive. And I can tell you that the outgoing sheriff feels strongly about that.
Let's call the question. Not discussion.
Question's been called. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
No.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Mr. O'Hagan has asked Lieutenant Ken Falk, our emergency management coordinator, to be his undersheriff, and he has accepted. Mr. Falk has 25 years' experience. He has a long law enforcement background and wants to continue to serve the county. Combination of law enforcement and emergency management experience would be a huge benefit to Manistee County. And salary was recommended at a pay grade 10, step 7, $62,473.07. And I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion and support. Any discussion?
Well, it really relates to, this one does relate to the last one, same thing. He's not been in that position yet. He campaigned hard. And he said numerous times in public forums that he wouldn't accept this position, he wouldn't be a yes man, he wouldn't, he has different ideas of how to run the department than John O'Hagan in public venues, he said. And to me, it's the same thing. Why are we doing this? And there was two other people that are in mind, but it was almost like to give him that couple of more thousand to get him in there is what the committee did, and I'm not in a, I don't agree with it. My vote's no on this, and I'm done.
Well, I would think that if I was the sheriff, I would want my undersheriff to have different opinions so we could talk issues over, so we could get all the issues out on the table and not be a yes man. So I wouldn't want my undersheriff to be a yes man. I'd want him, if he didn't agree with my thinking, to tell me so, and then we could figure out the proper way to do it. Maybe his way is right, maybe somewhere in the middle would be right. So I don't think I'd want a yes man for an undersheriff.
We have a motion to support. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
No.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Okay, there are no other items on the personnel committee, so I'll make a motion to accept the personnel report.
Support. We have motion and support to accept the personnel committee report. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. On to public safety. we have, we'll switch gears here and go to Pat Hines, 19th Circuit Court Administrator.
Good morning. Judge Thompson couldn't be here today. He's on the bench up in Benzie. What I brought to the board today is a updated job description for a position in our office. Our current employee is Karen Fleechek, and because of the new demands made on circuit court, we find the need to create a deputy court administrator that would allow me to be out up in Benzie and at board meetings and allow someone, she's doing the work now but not being paid for it. So we have updated the job descriptions. Lisa had started sending the originals out to all the departments, and when I reviewed that, it was sorely lacking in what my staff is doing. So what I'm asking today, I believe you have a copy of the updated job description for deputy court administrator, and we would like to send that to Notley for review.
You gotta do it?
I don't think we do.
No, we don't need a motion for that, do we? To send it to Notley?
We feel we do because we're spending some money on that, and that's one of the reasons we asked Ms. Hines to be here, is just to, our policy is that, you know, you need to approve that we at least send it to him. I didn't think you'd have a problem with it. We wanted you to be aware of it, because they want to do some reorganization there. I think it's probably a good idea. They're not asking for any additional staff, correct, Pat?
Correct.
It's just some reorganization, and you can make that determination later, once it's looked at.
Is this a shared position of fencing?
It is a 61.
I think we should do it. I'll make the motion to move it on.
I'll say,
Okay, motion and support. Any further discussion with regard to sending this job description off to Notley for his evaluation?
I'm real pleased to see this before we get down to voting on it, because it's happened before. We talked about positions and the job description wasn't even made up yet. I'm real happy for it.
That's why we brought it here today.
To please me.
It's been a tough day so far.
I'm
I've been here 4 years, I've learned.
All right, no further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Do you need a roll?
We're spending money.
No,
We're just saying.
Spending money to go to Notley.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money, though. You can probably just, it's up to you.
How much will it cost?
I see it as spending money. Let's call Ellen.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, you want to take a 5 out?
Yeah.
All right, we'll adjourn, and please, everybody watch their clocks. Let's get back in here, 10:17, 10 minutes.
Recommended by the committee that we keep the emergency management coordinator's position inside the sheriff's department and allow the sheriff to appoint whom he chooses for that position. So I'm going to make that motion.
I'll second. Motion and support to keep the emergency manager position appointed by the sheriff. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I was just curious. I don't have a problem at all with this, but I thought that it was the chair's duty, if you will, to appoint the emergency manager.
It is.
Then why are we doing this?
Because we're allowing the chair of this board is allowing the sheriff to make that decision.
If you look at the motion, when I wasn't at that meeting, but when you look at the motion, it does say basically with concurrence by the county board, which means when the sheriff comes and says, this is who I want to appoint, this board will still vote yes or no to that.
Well, I don't have no problem with that. So why are we making a issue out of this?
Well, we don't have to have it into the sheriff's department. We can go out and put it out on its own like it was in the past. I think it gives it a little more credibility having it inside the sheriff's department.
So,
Well, he was going to post it internal.
okay, what, Okay, what page is that on? What page?
57.
Okay.
I think as long as the motion is just as it's written, I think that would cover that.
I don't want to lose the fact that it should be brought to the board too.
Yeah.
Right. And I will make sure the new sheriff knows that and understands that.
John and I talked, he'd like to post it internally, and, you know, I have been asked about, from an external, I said, there's no reason not to, I mean, approach the sheriff-elect and discuss it with him.
I've
Receptive.
in my experience in dealing with several emergency management coordinators, we've had both civilian and it's been in the sheriff's office. It's been half-time, it's been full-time. We only receive about $22,000 a year in reimbursement, so it doesn't cover even half of what that office costs. But I have found that, number one, it being full-time is a really good thing, because when you get into half-time positions, and there's a lot of traveling to Gaylord and places like that, then you get into comp time, and they're only being paid half-time, and they go to a meeting all day to Gaylord, then they say, well, I can't work as much the next few days, and it gets to a point where nothing is really getting done. And the other thing is because if you put it in the sheriff's department, in the sheriff's office, I think it allows the sheriff to be a direct supervisor over that person. It also allows for that person to also be able to help
As needed.
as needed in the sheriff's office when they needed someone to do some investigation on a murder or on a big crime, where they can kind of take that person a little bit and use them as a sheriff deputy, so to speak, or a sergeant or a lieutenant. Where if you have a civilian, let's say you hired someone like me, I wouldn't be able to help the sheriff with some of those issues. So I found it to be, even though the emergency management coordinator directly answers to the county board chair, having that indirect supervision through the sheriff's office, I think, is really valuable.
Well, I've seen emergency management, coordinators who are in the health field, and they might not be working at the sheriff's department, but they do as much in the hospital system. They're also coordinating and working for that. So, it's like, I hear what you're saying. Two things come to mind. One, you said we went from a half-time to a full-time position now, an emergency management person?
A long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, long time.
Well,
So,
2001.
I want to clarify that. Half of their salary is still sheriff's department.
Well, we don't really pay it that way, and it's not really that way.
35 out of the 40 hours is paid to emergency management. 5 hours is paid to sheriff's department. I was in that position. I think you get more respect out of the fire departments and the other police departments having this in the sheriff's department more so than if you had a private person trying to tell those individuals, this is how you're supposed to do an emergency or an exercise.
well, okay, now,
Mhm.
that bugs me.
Well, I'm sorry,
I can tell,
but-
because it's like, all right, now, that's just kind of small thinking. And emergency management people do have specialized training as
Yes,
well.
they do.
You're just saying if John Doe, who does this, he's not gonna be respected, well, I would feel sad
Well, I
if
would
that's
too, but
gonna be the
I've
attitude
seen
of
past,
our
don't
providers.
get me wrong here, but I've seen past emergency management coordinators, and I liked every one of them, they're a friend of mine, but they don't seem to get the respect from other professional, I want to say law enforcement and or fire departments, that they do that when I was the emergency management coordinator, okay, as being in the sheriff's department. I'm sorry, that's how I saw it.
Okay, let me ask this. It's the chair's duty, whoever the chair is, and I would hope that he or she as chair would go to the sheriff's office and maybe get some recommendations or something. I have no problem with that. But we start passing resolutions and making laws that aren't should be concrete, because the next chair might feel different about this. And so, it already happens, and if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, but I don't think it has to happen on paper, because a different chair might feel different about just all the reasons everyone thought it was the best idea in the world.
Well, now you've got my thinking different. You know, it's like, well, if I just post this in the sheriff's department, why can't, there might be a very qualified firefighter out there who may want to
And
apply
that's
for
correct.
this. Or a EMT person.
What this motion is saying is that you're not advertising. You're going to post it internally, and if you can find someone within the sheriff's office to take it, it's gonna go there first. If you can't find someone, then I'm sure we'll have to go out and advertise. That's what you're saying here. If you don't want it that way, then you would advertise for the position and,
I think
Then
you can
both-
still
both
do it
ship-
this way if the chair chooses to do it that way, but there might be a different chair,
Well, we've got a job on the line here.
and we got
But
a
if we
job on
say-
it.
No, I mean, that's what it is. We've got a job on the line here. So we've put ourselves in this corner.
my discussion with the current undersheriff, the incoming sheriff, was initially, he'd like to post it internally as an informational item, see who is interested, and then go from there. I think when the Public Safety Committee met, they wanted to make that a little bit more formal, that we want to still keep it within the sheriff's office and, you know, have the sheriff come basically with a recommendation and have the board approve it, which means there'd be no outside advertising. But that's up to you.
This motion doesn't say anything about advertising. The thing that bothers me is it says that the sheriff to appoint. And I would rather that the motion state that the sheriff forwards a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for approval. We do that for all of our positions.
Well, he's gonna do that anyway.
Well, it doesn't say that there.
Yeah, but
Point is different than.
I think by state statute, I think he has to do that. If I'm not-
Well, I think by state statute, the chair,
That's what I'm saying.
he don't even go to the sheriff if he or she don't want to.
The sheriff will recommend somebody to the chair, and the chair will say yes or no.
Yeah, can pick him or her or not.
But ultimately, it's up to the chair to decide.
That's correct.
Well, the chair is a supervisor. I'm not so sure that it wouldn't be the full board. I don't know, I haven't read the statute on that, but I know the chair supervises the emergency management coordinator. In our county, there's kind of like a department supervisor, and that's the sheriff. And then the chair oversees the entire operation of emergency management, but the sheriff is kind of that immediate first line supervisor.
Yeah. My understanding is exactly that, after having discussions with John, is that he'd like to keep it internal, and we'd like to keep it internal, and I'm an advocate for keeping it in the sheriff's department as opposed to someone, you know, even if you bring somebody from outside, I still think they need to be in the sheriff's department.
You know,
That slot is where we want to have that.
Are we talking about two different things here? You know,
I think we are a little bit.
We're talking about the appointment of the emergency coordinator, and then
No,
you're talking about who supervises the person. That's two different things.
Well, he wanted to be able to, you know, try to get someone from internal inside the sheriff's department. Like
I understand that. And if he wants to recommend Joe Snuffy from the sheriff's department to you and this board for approval to be the emergency management coordinator, that's wonderful. You know? And if you want to delegate the control of that particular position to the sheriff on a day-to-day basis, that's your prerogative. But, you know, the motion should not say the sheriff appoints the emergency management coordinator.
I don't know if we need to even have this motion, to be honest.
I'm not so sure you do either. Let's let the sheriff come with a recommendation to you, bring it to the Public Safety Committee or the Personnel Committee, let them discuss it, and bring a recommendation to the board, or come directly to the board with it. But if this board is totally against not advertising, you should really say that at this point, so that we can start the process of advertising And if someone from within the sheriff's department wants to apply, they're an applicant. That's really what you're talking about here, is whether or not you want someone to, you want to allow it to just be internal. And I think I hear, Karen, I think I hear you saying, maybe we don't want it to just be internal.
I think we don't really have to have a motion, but I think that we can encourage the sheriff to start the process to fill this position. If the sheriff chooses, as in charge of this organization, to find out in his organization who is interested, he can start that run on his own. From there, if he has 3 or 4 applicants, he can say, I'm not gonna go any further. If he doesn't, then he can say, I will advertise outside. But he can start the process.
More than likely, the sheriff will not be interested in supervising an employee that is not a sheriff employee or an officer.
What's the history of this position?
The history is, in the past, we had civilians or former police officers, so to speak, that were appointed. Burl Lambergy when I started, then there was Bill Hund, and then it might have been Ken after that. That's when we actually put it in the sheriff department, moved it into the sheriff's department. Those positions, when Burl Lambergy and Bill Hund were emergency managers, the sheriff didn't have anything to do. They were located, the offices were located here in the courthouse. And they were strictly supervised by the chair, or, you know, with probably communication through my office. When we made it full-time, it was thought that there was more supervision needed than the chair could provide. And so it was put in the sheriff's office for a couple of reasons. One is the sheriff had access to that person for police work, part-time. And the sheriff supervised that person in conjunction with the chair. Put a little level of supervision there so that if something was, if we weren't happy with something, the sheriff was kind of there to make sure the emergency management coordinator was working. I think that has worked very well, and it's given the sheriff one additional employee, not on a full-time basis, but on a limited part-time basis when needed, gives him one more officer.
I would say this way, I have no problem, again, we have a full-time position sitting on this. I don't have a problem with the sheriff utilizing, a 75-25 FTE on that. I don't mind that, that doesn't bother me at all. What I am gonna say is that I am concerned about what you're telling me is an underlying culture in our emergency management system. That I would ask that the sheriff, when he does come here and finds that fit, that he also talks to us about how he's gonna change that culture.
See, that's the trials and tribulations that a sheriff, the political ramifications, that he still needs to learn. Some things work or don't work, and that's his duty to make them work.
Well, the other thing I would also caution, what you're reading into that is the perception from existing.
One person, I hear that, but I just want the reassurances from our sheriff that this position will be an important position, he'll manage it well, which I believe he will, but we have to hear this.
No, we did have a motion of support.
Yes.
Did anybody want to
But
rescind their
we-
motion?
but-
Or do we want to vote on it?
I'll rescind it, I'll let
Yeah.
next year's board decide.
Okay.
I think it's a mistake, taking out of it.
I highly doubt that will happen.
I think it runs very, very efficiently inside the sheriff's office, and I think we should stay there.
We kind of had this discussion on personnel.
And I know there's fire people
Public
all
safety,
doing it,
rather.
but
So.
I do know that when the incoming sheriff, Sheriff O'Hagan, Sheriff-elect O'Hagan, talked to both me and the chair, he fully understood that this is an appointment by this board, and the chair is the supervisor, and asked for permission to test the waters in his department to see if someone was interested. That's all he really asked.
Yeah, he can do that.
So we don't need a motion on that. So you rescinded the motion, you rescind, who seconded that? Okay,
Take it back.
all right.
Okay,
We
moving on.
don't need a vote on this.
Moving back,
I
911 director.
wouldn't know whether to say yes or no. if We rescinded it. Be mixed up.
Just follow my lead, Alan.
Wrong.
911 director's report. Jim Estabek came before the committee. He was put in charge of speaking to this board against the JAWS, on the sale of the JAWS unit. When we sold the JAWS unit, we received $58,500. The Manistee Township Fire Department Association is trying to put a list together to then come before this board as to what they need for either JAWS equipment and or heavy lift equipment. So they asked for a little more time, and the committee suggested that we wait until April, and he'll come back with a full report as to what the fire departments need for JAWS and heavy lift equipment. So
They're hoping to get three areas of the county with some new equipment, and plus the turnout gear for that equipment, because the turnout gear, if you were to use the fire department gear, if it gets oil on it or whatever, has a very bad effect on it as opposed to this stuff, which is much cheaper.
Yeah, you can wash this stuff.
okay, with that, that is the public safety report, and I'll make a motion to accept the report.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion support, any questions on the public safety committee minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, we've got the fair housing resolution. Resolution 2016-30, the fair housing resolution, on page 68.
This is an annual resolution that's adopted by the board, required by MISTA, basically saying we don't discriminate. Rachel tells me we still need to adopt it because we still technically have, a program. So it's a resolution that's adopted every year in December.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2016-30, fair housing resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got motion support, any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaver?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergstrom?
Yes.
Commissioner Dance?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hilliard?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us up to miscellaneous controller and board items.
I really don't have much other than a reminder that's on the agenda that the organizational board meeting is on Monday, January 2nd at 10 a.m. That is a holiday here in the courthouse, so the courthouse will be closed. We'll make sure the doors are open for both the public and for the board. I also would like to thank the board for your support during this past couple of weeks, and actually the past several months while I was trying to take care of my dad and throughout his death. I really appreciate all your kind words and support. It means a lot to me. It was surprising how many people that I knew came to the funeral home, including our new state representative and some others from around the county, our medical care facility administrator, our city manager. I was touched by all that. I'd also like to wish Mr. Hilliard, and even though I'll be still seeing Mr. Hilliard, maybe not quite as much, but working with him on a regular basis, I've really enjoyed his leadership as board chair and vice chair, and as a county commissioner over the past several years. And Ken and I have actually worked as employees of the county for many years, so I've known him a long time, and I'll miss him on the board. And I'll miss Alan a lot. Alan was probably one of the most prepared commissioners I've ever worked with, or worked for. And I just want to tell you that I'll miss you. And
Thank you.
Keep in touch, and
I'll miss you.
I consider you a friend also. So
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Did you run again with paper? Is that why you're looking?
That's what I'm
I don't make that anymore, Alan.
I'll buy it at $2.
And also, don't forget that we have our employee luncheon at noon today.
Brooke, you have anything?
No. I'm happy as a clam, lots of misery.
Alan?
14 years of public service. Thank you to the city of Manistee, the county residents, the county employees, all the supervisors, everybody. I appreciate the professionalism, and I'm real happy with the county and its employees. I think glass is half full there, and I really appreciate it. I feel real good with the new commissioners coming on board. They've shown the commitment, been coming to the meetings the last 5-6 months, and they dedicated themselves to working for the public, and I appreciate them talk about duties, responsibilities, and respect the chair and past chairs, Ken Hilliard, Jim Kochek, helped me a lot here. I've went through some personal things over the last 4 years, and they've helped me, talk me out of resigning a couple of times. But I really appreciate that, and the duties and responsibilities is really key, and I appreciate that. You see, I got a couple other notes. Other than that, I just thank everybody, and I'm good. That's it.
Karen? Richard?
No, I'd just like to thank Alan and Ken for the years they worked with me here. It's been an experience. We always don't agree, but we have had fun. So, I say thanks.
Mark?
Well, actually, I have similar comments, in that I appreciate very much Alan's participation on the board. I think you've raised some good points in the past that are worthy of discussion. You don't just go along with things, you have thought them out well. And Ken, I feel the same about you too. And I've enjoyed serving with both of you, and wish you both the best, and I wish all of you a Merry Christmas.
Mr. Ken?
Well, I just want to thank this board. I enjoy working with this board. It's a good board to work with. So, Merry Christmas, everybody. It's been fun.
Merry Christmas.
Bipartisan Christmas.
Thank you very much to this board for all their patience, and shorter meetings might come about.
Remains to be seen. I would like to also thank Mr. Hilliard. I learned a lot as you sitting as chair. It's definitely helped me in this position to be able to participate in meetings with you running. It really has been helpful. I'm glad to see you're going to the new office. It's much appreciated and needed. And Alan, I've told you time and time again, as Mr. Kaminsky said, one of the most prepared commissioners I've ever worked with. And as Mr. Bergstrom stated also, you just don't go along to get along. You challenge the thought process, and we have a better product at the end of the day because of it. So with that having said, Merry Christmas to everyone. And don't forget, we have our festivities next door here. What time's that kickoff time? Noon? 11:30? Noon. Okay.
They'd be over by then, half over.
The one thing I do want to point out before we get into public comment for the last time, and that is I had added to your packet the MERS from the Road Commission. They had a $50,000 bill every month for the senior administrative. That has gone down to about $12,500 a month. Huge impact for them. They're pursuing, they're investigating what to do. Their auditor was coming in the day after their previous meeting. They didn't take any action on doing anything they didn't need to, but at any rate, it's going to have a major positive impact on the road commissions. They'll try to figure out what they think they need to do.
Yeah, that table tells it all. The people that were employed a long time ago, they were very lucrative retirement program, and the current ones, it's a shared program. It's good to see.
With that, we go to public comment. Does anybody have anything? Mr. Tillotson.
I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. And something that I appreciate, and I always go with my camera around when during the national anthem, see if everybody's standing, has their hand on their chest. You do that, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you. So All right, anybody else, public comment? Hearing none, we're adjourned. I know.